Cold enough to freeze the carrot off a snowman, -4 this morning, but we're at Lake Yukonbean, or should I say the Yukonbean River. It is pre-spawn season. The trout are moving up out of the lake to do their annual spawning run. It's nice and cold and the fish love these conditions. This morning, I'm going to grab the spin gear, throw a few Rapalas around, then later on, I'll swap over to the fly, mix it up a little bit, but either way, it's looking like an absolutely beautiful day. But for now, I've got to get the gloves on because my fingers are already starting to feel the cold. All right. Packing light, grab the camera, and you'll see just down there is Lake Yukonbean. So we're probably only about 1 kilometre up the river. Big shallow runs, there's lots of gravel beds here, and as it gets light, I'm sure we'll actually be able to see a few fish sitting on the gravel waiting to spawn. But for now, a couple of lures, and in these parts it's 1 rod. You're only allowed 1 trout, and it has to be over 50 centimetres if you're going to keep them, and they do that because it is a trophy trout fishery, and this is a great time of year where you could potentially catch one of those really, really big Snowy Mountains trout of well over 10 pounds. I could only wish for a fish that big. Lock the car and we're into it. The great thing about this is you can literally fish from right where the car is. This is a big shallow run here. It's full of gravel and there will be trout sitting here. There's actually one just over there, just sort of swirled on the surface. It's not like normal season where they'll just be in the heads and the tails of the pools. They're sitting on these gravel beds getting ready to spawn or spawning. So you want to methodically work your way up through these pools and cover every little bit of water rather than just those heads and tails. And nothing is too shallow for these guys. You'll quite often just see fins and tails sticking out of the water because the fish are sitting in just a couple of inches of flowing water. There's one, got him. Oh, small fish, very small fish. But this is what makes it such a really exciting time of year. Oh, did him. Such an exciting time of year up here because you could catch a fish this big or you could catch a fish this big. And this is your great time of year to target a huge trout because they're in confined areas, being in the river, rather than spread out over a couple of million kilometres of lake. Here we go. Ah, it's a rainbow. Cool. Interesting thing. The rainbows also spawn in this river, but they do it later in the season, more probably August, September. But the rainbows you catch up in here now, sometimes they're very big, sometimes they're small like this. But as all these guys are here for is to eat the trout eggs that are getting washed out of the gravel beds and stuff as the trout are spawning. So they're basically just up here having a free feed. Absolute pigs eating the eggs. And why wouldn't you when there's a whole lot of trout eggs floating in the river, because where one trout might lay its eggs, the next trout will come along, go, that looks like a good spot to spawn, make the red, dig the bottom up and uncover some eggs that have already been there and they'll float down the river. There you go, little male, cool little fish. You know it's a bit cold when the line or the water coming off the line is freezing in the guides. Good trick, melt it in your mouth. Don't stick the rod tip in the water because it'll be wet, and as soon as you lift it back out, it's cold and it freezes in about a second. So if they really choke up, some mornings it's so cold up here, you can only make 2 or 3 casts before you have to thaw out all your guides again so you can cast. Same spot. Obviously more than one fish sit in there. Yeah, it's a nice looking fish too. I love fishing up here too because this time of year they get in their spawn colours, and the variation of colours that you can get between fish is quite unique. This guy's got that beautiful bronzy sort of colour to him. Just a great looking fish. Fairly wallop in that Rapala, that's for sure. The lure I've got on is actually a floating 7 Rapala at the moment. The reason for the floating over the sinking is that it runs a little bit shallower, but also you can wind it slower to get a good swimming action out of it. A sinking lure, you've generally got to wind them a bit quicker. And these fish, I'm trying to hold that lure in front of their face for as long as I can. So by being able to do a very, very slow roll and have that lure just wriggling nicely, enables me to catch more fish. In a deep pool, I might go to a countdown model, which will sink, but in this sort of stuff here, I just love the floating patterns. There we go. Bit better fish. Oh yeah, he's a nice brownie, that one. Now, where are we going to land this guy? I might just try and slide him up on this shallow edge. Just got to be ready with these guys because I'll sort of play dumb and just sit there, and then they'll give it that one last shot, and if you're not ready for it, they'll quite often do. They'll jump and snap the line or throw the hook or whatever, so. That's a bit better. Alrighty, you'll see it's clobbered that Rapala. Sideways, it would have just swept across the front of her face. And she's just walloped it. Beautiful looking fish. We'll get these hooks out, we'll get it back. There we go. Yeah, that's a better fish. Still certainly not a monster for this part of the world. Oh, that was a nudge. You get some funny bites too on these hard bodies at this time of year because they're trying to get it out of their area. They'll sort of sometimes nudge it and punch it rather than come in and just eat it. But if you get a nudge or a punch and you just keep winding that lure in front of their face, quite often it will just annoy them enough after 5 or 6 casts that they'll go, right, time for you to move out of here big time, and they'll actually bite it. There we go, got him. Don't jump. I had a bump just the cast before. It was a fish nudging the lure or just taking a swipe at it, so I just put that cast back in that same path and right in exactly the same spot. I got a proper hit this time and it's produced this fish. He's obviously said, get out of here. He's seen it again and gone, right, you haven't learnt your lesson, so I'll fix you. The worst thing about this is, as you can see, the ground's white. That's because it's frozen. It's actually snapping as I lay on it. Now I've got to grab this guy, which means my fingers are going to get really cold really quickly. Very important to have a set of forceps with you, or little pliers. I love forceps for all my trout fishing because it doesn't matter if it's a lure or a fly, your hooks are small, and little forceps like that make it very easy to get them out. That guy would be about a year old, but we'll pop him back because he needs to grow up to be a giant. You'll notice too that when I'm casting, I'm not necessarily casting straight upstream, I'm casting at about 45 degrees. And what that enables you to do is have your lure cover more fish. Because it's coming down and it's sweeping down with the flow of the current, you can wind your lure slower. If I cast straight up, I have to wind quite fast with the flow of the water, and it's going in a very straight line towards any fish that will be sitting into the current, which is only showing a narrow window that the fish can see, sweeping it across and down the stream like that. Any fish that are sitting stacked across the river will see this lure come sweeping across their face. And at this time of year, something like that floating 7 brown trout Rapala brings out an aggression bite. These fish are trying to find their area that they want to sit in, and any other fish that come into it that aren't supposed to be there, they want to get them out. So I'm getting more of an aggression bite rather than a food bite. They're just saying, get out of here, and that's the idea. I'll even swap up to some bigger lures later on, because 13 centimetre Rapalas are just like a snack to these guys, and quite often the bigger the lure, the more of a threat that it poses, and for a big fish, he just wants to get that well away from him. Now that fish was right where a trout should be, if that makes sense. You've obviously got the main part of the river flowing down here. You've got this little Anna branch that sweeps around and comes through here. And you can see there's a very defined line of where this river flows out, that one comes in, and there's a V where they meet. There's quite a calm section of water in the middle where the water's actually spinning backwards, and that's where a trout will sit, because he can sit in the current, but without being in the current, he's just sitting there and it's not flowing as hard. You can duck in and grab any food or whatever it may be, and dragging that lure straight through there just said, I'll have you. That's a bit better. Nice female. You can tell that by the smaller jaw. And she's a little bit lean. Probably been in the river for a while, quite dark in colour. This is the spawning colours. We'll pop her back. Beautiful. I'm Lee Rayner, and today I'm going to show you a great way to clean fish where you don't even need a knife. It's fast, it's easy, and it's very effective. Rapala, with the help of Fiskars of Finland, have come up with these great new fish cutters. They come in the standard and the magnum size. There's several factors that make these not just your average pair of scissors. To start with, stainless steel serrated blades that are razor sharp and will cut through everything they need to cut through. Then you've got glass fibre reinforced handles that are injection moulded onto the stainless blade so they're not going to break. And finally, a beautiful soft ergonomic grip so you're not going to slip when you're doing that cutting. Now I'm going to show you how to clean this beautiful brown trout that I just caught in the river behind me here. It's a pretty easy process. First, roll him upside down, open the scissors up with this little lock. We're now in business. In the fish's vent, and then we just make a nice cut up his belly. You want to go right to here, but not all the way through to there. Then in behind that pectoral fin, and then cutting up through here, and then cut through that gill latch. Straight away, you're saving what would normally blunt a knife very quickly. Roll him over to this side and repeat the process through there. Then I'm just going to pop this bottom of the gill latch open, stick the scissors in through there and cut there. Then it's a simple matter of putting your thumb into the bottom jaw and your index and forefinger into there, and then we are going to peel the whole lot back, separating the gills, the stomach and the pectoral fins in one go. I'll wash this fish off. That there is perfect if you want to keep your trout whole to cook it, but this is where the scissors really shine. First of all, cut in to the fins, and you need to cut a little bit deeper into the meat to get through the bony sections. Chop all those fins off. Repeat the same on the other side. Then roll your fish over. Chop that fin off. And off with the dorsal fin. We've now got basically a trunk of a trout. From here, I'll lay the fish down. I'm going to peel the head back, break in the backbone. Then we're just going to peel this skin back, just like this. And then we now have a beautiful trout carcass. Trim through there, give the fish a quick wash, get rid of all that bloodline. There you have it, a beautifully clean trout. Didn't even use a knife, and I can tell you now, these Rapala scissors by Fiskars are a vital part of your fish cleaning arsenal.
When you're fishing for trout, every location you fish will usually require a slightly different technique to ensure that you get the best of your fishing. Now we're here at Hopkins Falls and we're going to do a little bit of classic plunge pool fishing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down there below the falls to show you some of the best techniques that you can use to target big brown trout in dirty water below waterfalls. Well, I've just finished rigging up here, and what I'm going to do is, because I'm fishing plunge pools, is I'm going to select a lure that's nice and big because the water's a bit discoloured, and I'm also going to select one that's got a bit of a rattle. So I'm going to use this husky jerk. This is a Rapala husky jerk. This is the 8 centimetre model. It's nice and big. It's got flashy sides on it. This is actually the new colour Helsinki shad. And it's got a nice big pair of hooks because the fish we're hoping to encounter here have got big mouths and they eat big minnows. So this should be perfect, and hopefully the rattle will help to attract the fish. And all we want to do is get the fish's attention, and he should just strike it because they have to be so opportunistic. So let's go see if it works. Now behind me you can see Hopkins Falls, and it's absolutely raging at the moment. The water's a bit dirty, so I don't really need to sneak up on the fish at all. All I have to do is just find somewhere, a safe vantage point basically, to stand where I won't slip in, because the fish are going to be hiding under all that foam there. Because there's not a lot of other structure, and that's where they're going to be hunting small fish and ambush them, and hopefully we can get one to come out and ambush my lure. Fish usually will come across here and hit it near the foam. Yep. Oh, there he is. Unreal. Oh no. He's going over there. He's going downstream. I just free spooled him, and hopefully he goes into that hole. Just got to be careful not to fall over. Keep going, fish. Right. Righto, we're getting into some safe water, somewhere here. And he just expended a lot of energy then. So, oh, there he goes. Just gonna back that drag off now. Hopefully, those hooks are right in. And there's really no choice for me at the moment but to get in here with him. Righto, I'll get my net out. And we'll see if we can lead him in here. What a fish, eh? Come on, scoop you in. Ah, we got him. Awesome, how's that? He came up and he ate it right under the foam there. I couldn't see anything. But that's a bit of just reward for skipping around on the rocks. And that's an absolute cracker. Well, there you go. Certainly worth the reward for going in there. You've got to be a bit careful. It's pretty deep. These are plunge pools here, so the waterfalls come over into these big holes and they drop off very quickly, so you've got to be very careful. Now, I always bring a pair of Rapala mini hook out pliers with me when I come fishing, particularly when I'm using minnow lures with treble hooks. It just saves your hands and the chance that you might actually hook yourself while you're trying to get the hooks out. It's just simply a matter of putting that over the shank of the hook, twisting, and that's how easy it comes out. And there you go. A beautiful southwest brown trout around the 2 kilo mark. Pretty typical of these waters. We don't get the numbers like you get in streams in northeast Victoria, but we make up for it in the size of the fish we get. And if you got that fish anywhere in Victoria, you'd be pretty happy. So we'll get him back in the water nice and quickly, and we'll get back to it. Yep, oh, we took it right on my feet. I'm just going to strip some line out there. There we go. Oh, strong fish. And I just want to try and hold him here. A lot of people say to me, why do I use fluorocarbon for this sort of fishing as my leader? Well, the reason's quite simple. I use 10-pound fluorocarbon because these rocks will absolutely make a mess of you, particularly when you've got a good fish on under a fair bit of pressure. So this one's still pretty fresh. We'll just let him go. There's no need to rush your fish. That's when you pull hooks. So we'll just let him swim around there for a sec. We'll get the net out. And I don't wear waders here. You can see that I've just got my running shoes on. And the reason is that if I fell in, I'd probably have them fill up and drown. So I always wet wade with shorts and a pair of runners. There we go. Unreal. And it's just such exhilarating fishing. You've got the water ripping over here. It feels like I'm raining from all the spray, the foam. You don't know where the fish are going to come from. And whack, out they come and hit those husky jerks. Unreal. Well, he absolutely smashed it. And that's the thing about these fish in here. They're so opportunistic. They see something or hear something, they've got to grab it. So we're going to let this fish go. Now it's a stocked fishery, so it's a put and take fishery, but I choose to let them go. They're just beautiful fish, and it gives someone else the opportunity of catching one as well that's been released. And look at that, look at those spots and colours. And one of the great things I love about trout fishing is that every trout is different. Their markings, their colours, and obviously their size as well. And it just adds a whole new element to fishing for trout.